Hello, welcome back to How the Internet Fell Out of Love. You know what we do here by now, and if you don't, you can check out this playlist here. Today, we are talking about Oscar-winning actress Jamie Lee Curtis. This has been a highly requested How the Internet Fell Out of Love choice, and I think now is the right time to tackle it. And helping me do that today is a special guest and friend of the show, Caroline Kwan.
When I saw your tweet, you're like, should I make a video about this? I was like, oh, I'm gonna message her and go, I am so happy to come on and talk about Jamie Lee Curtis.
Caroline talks politics and pop culture on Twitch. You should go check her out. All of her information is in the description down below. Jamie Lee Curtis has been around for a long time. Whether you know her from one of your favorite childhood movies like Freakier Friday, or as the legacied final girl Laurie Strode in Halloween, or the Actavia yogurt commercials, you've seen her before, and you know her from something. JLC has been a fixture in Hollywood long before anyone in my generation knew what that even meant. She is also a self-described nepo baby, with both of her parents working in the entertainment industry. Jamie comes from the old world of Hollywood, and people loved her for that. She rarely ever had to filter herself. She said what she thought, and she didn't give a fuck what you thought about it. She was like everyone's cool aunt at the party, and I think people were generally very endeared to her in the age of celebrities over-censoring themselves or doing things performatively for social media. And I'll give Jamie credit where it's due. She officiated her trans child's wedding and has been vocally supportive of the LGBTQ community. She has also talked openly and honestly about her struggles with addiction. She presents herself as herself, warts and all, so to speak. In terms of her work, Jamie has also seemingly evolved with the times. She gave a transformative performance in The Last Showgirl alongside Pamela Anderson. She shows up once a season in The Bear to give a significantly better performance than like 90% of that cast, but perhaps her most notable role in recent years was the one that sort of began her public downfall. Have you ever seen a scary news story and then spent the next 3 hours spiraling, convinced that the same exact thing was going to happen to you? Going over all of these plans, trying to figure out how to prevent this catastrophic event? Or maybe you watched a TikTok about somebody else's breakup and now you're suddenly second-guessing and spiraling about your own relationship, replaying every single interaction that you've had with that person in your head, even though things seem to be going completely fine before you watch that TikTok. If this sounds familiar, you yourself might be dealing with a condition called OCD, and you're definitely not alone. OCD is nothing like the stereotypes that we see in television or movies. It's actually one of the most misunderstood health conditions, and many people struggle with it for years and years before they realize what it even is. OCD involves intrusive, unwanted thoughts that seem terrifyingly real, and anxiety that turns every little thing into a potential catastrophe, and compulsive behaviors that feel absolutely necessary to address that distress. For example, endlessly scrolling on your phone or constantly asking for reassurance. But those behaviors never actually provide relief for long. The thoughts always come back, and then the exhausting cycle starts over and over again. OCD can be absolutely debilitating, but it's highly treatable when you can get the right kind of therapy. The key is finding specialized treatment because OCD needs a specific approach that general talk therapy just can't provide. That's where NOCD comes in. Their therapists specialize in exposure and response prevention. This is a type of specialized therapy proven to be the most effective kind of treatment for OCD. NOCD therapists work with you in live face-to-face virtual sessions. The great thing is that they're trained to understand all of the difficult ways that OCD can show up, so that you can share your most difficult thoughts without any fear of judgment. And they know how to help you manage your symptoms so that you can live a life without OCD in control. NOCD also provides support between sessions so that you're never on your own. If this sounds familiar, don't wait. Go to NOCD.com and book a free call with their team to learn more about how they can help. That's NOCD.com. Thanks so much to our friends at NOCD. Now back to the video.
Oscar winner. Oh, Jamie Lee Curtis. Has it sunk in?
I hadn't watched that.
Oh my God. It's beautiful.
So that was the first time I've seen it.
Oh my gosh.
Thanks, everybody. Good morning.
In 2023, Jamie Lee Curtis won an Oscar for Best Supporting Actress following the smashing success of Everything Everywhere All at Once. This was a weird situation for a couple of reasons. No one that I knew disliked Jamie's performance as Deirdre, a tax auditor and minor antagonist in the more complex story of the main characters Evelyn and Waymond. In that way, it was a true supporting role, as sometimes lead performances do get unfairly stuffed into that category. Kieran Culkin, I'm sorry, if you're watching this, I love you, Kieran Culkin. Culkin. I'm sorry, Kieran Culkin. I'm sorry. But Jamie had some stacked competition that year, including Angela Bassett's highly acclaimed performance in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, and from within her own movie. Stephanie Hsu was also nominated for her role as Joy. Both performances were arguably more impactful than Jamie's, screen time and content-wise. And while most people figured that either of them would likely win the award that year, they were excited to see Jamie getting to do the prestige award circuit thing, especially after decades of putting in work as more of a genre actor, and then she won.
Hear me out. I think it is when she won the Oscar for Everything Ever All at Once, and she should not have won the Oscar. That was very clearly a legacy award, we love Jamie Lee Curtis, her parents were beloved in Hollywood. We're going to give her this Oscar. And I look at that as the point of no return.
I know that this seems silly to bring up, especially considering the stuff that we're going to talk about later on in this video. However, most how the internet fell out of love stories in the time that I've been doing this start in a rather silly and innocuous way. This was a big deal at the time, and I think it cemented for some people that some of the things that we love about Jamie Lee Curtis were also some of the things that got on other people's nerves. Jamie got that award as a thank you from the Academy. She knows everyone, she loves everyone, and they all love her. But in some ways, that was a major turnoff to people. It made her seem undeserving, privileged, entitled even. And it was never like anyone expected her to renounce her own award and give it to another nominee. It's not her fault that she won. But whether it was fair or not, I think this put a bad taste in people's mouths. And the thing that kept the bad taste there was the words coming out of her own mouth. Following the events of October 7th, Jamie Lee Curtis shared a photo on her Instagram story from the New York Times of terrified children glancing up at missiles shooting through the sky, captioned, "Terror from the Skies." The graphic also featured an Israeli flag, implying that the children in the photo were from Israel. This imagery is not new to us now. We see documented atrocities like this coming out of Gaza every single day. But it was clear at the time that she had taken this image without evaluating its context properly, and she just ran with it. You see, that image was of children in Gaza, and when her followers promptly called her out on that, she simply took down the photo. She later addressed the controversy by saying, quote, "I am also human and therefore flawed and contradictory. I make mistakes, and I try to own them in this time of great conflict around the world where we are all trying to find our individual center of care and compassion and outreach so we can use our voices amidst the cacophony of hate that is surrounding us. My entire adult life has been focused on the care of critically ill and injured children wherever they are, whoever they are, whatever country they're from, whatever circumstances and religious affiliations. I will continue to do that amidst all of our anger and division and cleaving of our shared coexistence. Tonight, I hope you join me as I pray for the safe release of hostages all over the world, especially the children. And I pray for the ceasing of violence perpetrated against all people all over the world, especially the children."
But rather than post something then in support of Palestinian children, being like, let me try this again. Now I know these are actually Palestinian kids who are looking up at, terror from the skies. Oh, no. And then when she finally broke her silence on it, she basically was like, oh, well, I make mistakes and, we all make mistakes. And I think it's just important to have compassion right now. And there's so much hatred going on. It was just such a bullshit. It was a bullshit statement to make after doing something like that. And since then, I think a lot of people have come to understand that Jamie Lee Curtis is a shitty person.
People were understandably very upset by this, and still are to this day, because it's a perfect example of an out-of-touch celebrity reaffirming their own biases and not caring about the consequences of spreading misinformation at a critical point in history. But as the pop culture world continues to turn, the story doesn't end there. In the last 2 years, Jamie Lee Curtis has had many more weird and wild moments, some of which we'll discuss right now. First of all, one of those weird moments was the press tour for Freakier Friday 2, which came out earlier this year, when everyone couldn't help but point out that Jamie Lee Curtis was well endowed. That was a really weird day online, and I have nothing to say about it besides acknowledging the fact that it happened. Anyway, when you're doing a press tour for a movie, you're usually in front of a lot of cameras and saying things in places where you otherwise normally wouldn't be, and in this case, that was to her detriment. For example, back in July, she did an interview with The Guardian where she discussed unfair beauty standards in Hollywood and the expectations put on women in the industry to get plastic surgery, a topic that she has been vocally passionate about for a long time. Now, surely because this is a topic that she's talked about for a long time and a topic that she has discussed publicly before, surely that means that she's not going to say something completely controversial, out of pocket, and unnecessary, right? Right, guys? Right? I've been very vocal about the genocide of a generation of women by the cosmeceutical industrial complex who have disfigured themselves. I've used that word for a long time, and I use it specifically because it's a strong word. I believe that we have wiped out a generation or two of natural human appearance. The concept that you can alter the way you look through chemicals, surgical procedures, fillers, there's a disfigurement of generations of predominantly women who are altering their appearances. Hey girl, hey diva, quick question. Why the fuck would you say this? Why would you say this?
When I covered that on stream, I'm like, look, there was a way to make this point that she was making about about beauty standards, about the pressure on women, especially in industries like Hollywood, to not age, because when women age, then they might as well throw them in the trash, right? But it was the language that she used, and also how the journalist was kind of like, whoa, are you sure about using that word? And she then was like, absolutely. I mean, she was basically like, I know what genocide is, and that is why I'm using this word genocide to describe the impossible beauty standards on women, which was just so gross considering the context of the genocide that is occurring against Palestinians, and how she has not spoken on that.
Ultimately, I think this is an example of saying whatever comes to mind just because you can, without understanding that it's a privilege to do so. She did not have to use that word because it was strong or provocative. She knows what that word is meant to be reserved for in today's day and age, and I would argue that perhaps she phrased her response in this way so that a different thing would come up if one were to ever Google Jamie Lee Curtis genocide. Additionally, and this was a weird but albeit more lighthearted sidebar around this time, whoever was doing Jamie Lee's Freaky Friday press tour evidently booked her for the Las Culturistas Awards, hosted by comedians Bowen Yang and Matt Rogers. Now, if you're not even a little bit online, you don't know what this is. And Jamie Lee Curtis is not online enough to know what this is. So on the purple carpet before the event, when Jamie saw Matt and Bowen loudly doing bits with one another, probably not realizing that they were the hosts, she did this.
Rated line. I'm not talking to you, bitch!
Yeah. We're quoting Julia Roberts.
Bring the whole fucking thing.
You're gonna hate this show then.
We'll sit you in the back.
I sound like a broken record at this point, but this is yet another example of Jamie Lee Curtis using her bullish old school Hollywood mystique in an attempt to control the environment around her completely unfiltered, which is just not compatible with this very unserious generation that takes the right things seriously, which she doesn't. Which brings me to my last point. Jamie Lee Curtis is currently catching heat for expressing her opinions on the assassination of right-wing political commentator Charlie Kirk. Okay, cutting in here because this clip is apparently from Mark Maron's podcast, but it's also on TMZ, and I don't know what the legality of use is there, so I'm just going to read what she said, which is also helpful to me because then I don't have to get secondhand cringe from listening to this clip. Okay, here we go. I disagreed with him on almost every point I ever heard him say, but I believe he was a man of faith, and I hope in that moment when he died that he felt connected with his faith, she said. The 66-year-old actress got so emotional that she began to cry. Sniffing through tears, she called Kirk a man of faith and hoped that his faith served as a source of comfort for him in his final moments. Even though I find his ideas were abhorrent to me, I still believe he's a father and a husband and a man of faith, and I hope whatever connection to God means that he felt it.
Because first of all, she calls him Charlie Crist, and then is like, oh, that was a slip of the tongue because he was such a man of faith. And so to see all of these celebrities now, and not just celebrities, but the media, but our, political class, like sanitizing and whitewashing his legacy. So it's not just about Jamie Lee. I think it's the totality of it, where I think people feel that they're losing their minds seeing this lionizing and this whitewashing of somebody who was a person who said very hateful things.
Now, this is not to say that people don't respond to emotionally charged moments in their own ways. Jamie Lee Curtis is a very emotional person. She cries in like every interview that she does. However, the argument here that people are making is an obvious one. Jamie Lee Curtis is a trans child, and people like Charlie Kirk, who she is very publicly mourning, are actively advocating for the eradication of her trans child's existence.
Let me just state this for posterity. Nobody wants to see this kind of violence being enacted. Okay. Like, as far as condemning political violence, yeah, absolutely. And political violence is not just an individual act of violence against a popular right-wing YouTuber, let me just say. And I think Jamie Lee is just one example of examining like what is going on in this country, what is going on in the highest institutions, the those who have power in this country, and like what the narrative is that's being set. It's not enough to just say like, I condemn this violence. I don't agree with what happened to Charlie Kirk, as I would say that for anybody. If you are not like accepting that this is now the predominant view in the United States of America, that if you are, like being transphobic, being racist, all of these really dangerous, abhorrent beliefs and policies that are coming from these beliefs is only what is acceptable.
The truth is that every celebrity will disappoint you. When national events like this happen, a whole gaggle of them will come out of the woodwork to say the exact wrong thing in the exact wrong moment, which is particularly frustrating when they stay silent about everything else. This video could have very well been about Kristen Chenoweth or Jennifer Coolidge or any white woman who has let you down within the past week.
There are a lot of normies who don't know who Charlie Kirk was. And so when they consume their news through pop culture and they go, oh, Jamie Lee Curtis going on a podcast, and they hear her say like he was a man of faith, he was a husband and father. Normies who are not tapped into like the Charlie Kirk world, the kind of online political world, they then go, oh, this guy he was just a Christian. He was just a husband and a father. And that's all they understand of who he was.
The refugee ring. It's my friend Kathy Waterman made the ring. The refugee pin is to remind everybody about the amount of displaced people in the world right now. The Ukraine crisis has released an exodus of human beings, and it's just another exodus of human beings throughout history.
As usual, I'm not here to chastise anyone for feeling that disappointment, for feeling like you just want anybody with any modicum of power to go to bat for you when the world isn't doing that. A common critique I've been seeing about Jamie lately is that she always seems to be on the wrong side of history. But right now, it's hard to even see that as the victors continue to write everything in their favor. Maybe she'll learn from this. Or maybe she won't.
People will always say it's not that deep when it applies to celebrities, because I think they look at celebrities and Hollywood as separate from the real world. They'll say the same thing about the internet too, though. They'll go, oh, that's just, the internet is not real life. There is a separation between online and the real world, but I think that line has blurred, and I think it has gotten thinner and thinner as we have seen how what is occurring on the internet is bleeding into the real world. I guess I would just say it's important to pay attention to what is occurring in popular culture, because it can inform you on where we are at politically. We have to pay attention to it because there's so much influence that is being wielded through the lens of talking about pop culture and how that is affecting our politics.
Hello, everyone. Our friend John suggested that we end this video or feature in this video an Activia taste test in honor of Jamie Lee Curtis. And I thought that was a great idea, so I went to the supermarket and I bought it. And Brian's going to taste test it with me. So we're going to taste it, and then also I'm going to give some channel updates while the credits roll next to us or on us or whatever. So I'm going to taste it first. That's actually pretty good. This is the strawberry banana flavor. I'm gonna hand it off to you so you can taste test it while I give some updates. Give it a taste, dog.
Why?
Because I said so.
You said it doesn't taste that bad?
No, it doesn't taste that bad. It tastes good.
It's good.
It's good?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Anyway,
Never had it.
Thanks so much for watching. Thank you to Caroline Kwan for stopping by the show today. Thank you to NOCD for sponsoring today's video. If you go in the description down below, you can check out some other wonderful things down there, including my Patreon, my Linktree for all of my social media. Also, I put out a video on Monday that I then took down because it was tanking, and now it's on my second channel, so there's a link to that down there as well. Thanks so much for watching. Get your probiotics, and that's what this is, right?
Yeah.
Have good gut health. See you later.